talk right now.
Walter Anderson and his partner speeding away from the scene of a holdup.
Stop the car, man. Man, what are you doing? Stop the car!
When police finally pulled him over, they say Anderson pulled his gun while his partner made a run for it.
Where do you live, little girl? Show me.
Oh, please, please, oh, God.
What do you want? Don't do anything. Move. Get down on the floor. Now! Now, word. Blow your head off. Police, open up! Did you see anything? Did you hear anything? No. Sure. Right upstairs.
Please, open up. There was a guy with a gun that just ran through here. Did you see or hear anything?
Anderson didn't budge. Police say he held the family hostage for 5 hours while officers checked every door.
Anything?
Nothing. Let's go.
Police called off the search, thinking Anderson had already escaped. They say that he had won the waiting game, and he let the family go. Less than 3 weeks later, police moved in on a hideout where Anderson was holed up with his girlfriend.
Give it up, Anderson! You're surrounded! Give it up! Toss the guns out the window!
What are you doing?
I need protection, man.
No, no,
Hey! I got a Uzi! I got grenades! I'll kill you all!
Come out now with your hands over your head!
No, man! I'll blow her away!
Release that girl immediately!
I'll kill all of you!
Let go of her! You're surrounded. You don't stand a chance, Anderson.
Next.
You're surrounded. You don't stand a chance.
Police say the standoff lasted 4 hours until Walter Anderson dropped his gun and surrendered to police. Anderson worked out a deal. He got a lot of different charges dropped by pleading guilty to 3 counts of bank robbery. Then the judge gave Anderson a break and sentenced him as a youthful offender, just 6 years behind bars. But Anderson got another break. A paperwork error let him walk out of prison.
Court is like, I just did 4.5 years, 5 years. Nah, I hang out for a little while. By the time they catch up to me, I need the rest.
Anderson showed up in Indianapolis, Indiana. He got charged with possession of cocaine under the alias Tony Romano. But Anderson knew how to play the system. By the time his fingerprints revealed his true identity, he'd paid his bond and disappeared.
I came back down to Atlanta upon my release. And after that, I went back down to Miami. From Miami, I went to the Philippines. I mean, I basically came up with credentials that left me to where I could leave the country whenever I want to. I obtained passports. At no particular time was I ever really bound to the States. Again, this federal system, as I stated before, this is college for criminals.
You've got a criminal as slippery as Anderson. You've got to use every trick in the book to capture him. That's why New York City police asked America's Most Wanted to profile him. And in August 1991, someone recognized him. That someone was a cop.
I leap forward, I look, I point, I say, that's him! That's him! I leap up and do a jig. I call my wife, I said, babe, babe! I run up the steps. back down. I'm looking, I'm saying, yes, that's him, babe.
David Turner was a police officer in El Cajon, California. He recognized Anderson as a suspect he'd met in a shooting investigation near San Diego a month earlier. Turner called the U.S. Marshals and started looking for Anderson again himself. But what Turner didn't know was that Anderson was less than an hour away. So close, but yet so far, because he had crossed the Mexican border and was hiding out in Tijuana. In Tijuana, Anderson kept a low profile. He blended in with the locals and avoided tourists. But he kept abreast of American news through television. And on August 30th, 1991, he saw himself on America's Most Wanted. Watching with him was his girlfriend.
And we saw it, and she said, well, what are you gonna do? So I started putting bags in the car. She said, what's the sense in keep running?
Anderson decided it was time to stop running. On Saturday, August 31st, he crossed the U.S. border to San Diego. Turner and the U.S. Marshals spotted Anderson's red Camaro. Anderson says he was expecting them.
I started walking out, and then they told me to get down on my hands and knees, don't move. I got down on my hands and knees.
I had my gun extended like this and saw him on the wall with a marshal next to him. I placed my hand on his left arm, at which time he immediately turned to me and smiled and said, Turner, I'm glad it's you.
Sadly, just 2 weeks after Officer David Turner arrested Anderson, he was killed in the line of duty. Losing a dedicated cop like Turner is everybody's loss. But one of his final arrests helped put a career criminal back behind bars where he belongs. Anderson was tried and convicted on numerous charges, including drug trafficking. He's now doing 60 years in a federal pen. That's probably the end of the line for the man who started out as a tough kid in big trouble. Anderson liked to blame his troubles on a lot of different people. Now that he's behind bars, he says he's finally ready to wise up.
For all you little kids that's running around out there thinking it's slick to sling drugs, thinking it's slick to carry pistols, this is where you wind up in the end. And it's not worth it.
When we come back, an eerie murder mystery rocks a small town in Big Sky country. Stay with us.
Next.
Kalispell, Montana, settled almost 100 years ago by the Great Northern Railroad Company. Its landscape still bears skeletons of its past. Life here still has a Western flavor. Rodeos, ranching, and strong morning coffee are local traditions. But in 1982, an eerie rumor spread across town that something and someone had mysteriously disappeared into a nearby lake.
We heard that the plane went down. And then shortly after that, we heard it was in the Bitterroot Lake. Why it went down, nobody knows.
I thought it was an accident. He just couldn't get her out. He didn't leave her there on purpose.
They either had airplane trouble or they ditched the airplane because they were drug runners. They were hauling drugs in the airplane. But they never found any, to my knowledge.
Rumors in small towns spread like brush fires, but this rumor soon became reality.
Well, this is Corky.
Corky Derby, a deputy's assistant at the Flathead County Sheriff's Department, has spent 13 long years trying to unravel the mystery of that rumor. It began one August evening in 1982.
We got a phone call from the RCMP. They said that they'd been conducting an air search for the past 2 weeks for a missing plane.
Jerry Ambrozuk, the pilot of this aircraft, he and his girlfriend Diane Babcock had come to Penticton from the lower mainland Vancouver area to lay on the beach and just have a fun, sun-filled day.
18-year-old Diane Babcock had just graduated from high school. Her boyfriend, 19-year-old Jerry Ambrozuk, had decided to spend one of their last days together before she started college, flying to a beach. Jerry, a newly licensed pilot, rented a plane for the day. But on their return, they disappeared. What started out to be a search for a missing plane and its occupants would soon turn out to be much more when the Royal Canadian Mounted Police received a strange phone call from a friend of Jerry Ambrozuk's.
They had received a phone call from a friend of the pilot, and that the pilot was alive and well and calling him in Vancouver from New York City. From the phone calls, that Jerry made to his friend in Vancouver, it was established that he took the aircraft, filed the flight plan, and then deviated from that filed flight plan and on into the States and crash-landed the aircraft into Bitterroot Lake.
But the question on everyone's mind was, where is Diane Babcock? Only Jerry Ambrozuk would have the answers.
He kept calling his friend Tom, and at this point we had the RCMP put a phone trace on Tom's phone, so from then on we had transcripts of the telephone calls when he called.
In those transcripts, Jerry seems to show no remorse. I'll be famous. I'll write a book about it someday. I'm not gonna feel guilty. Based on these statements, investigators had reason to believe that this was no accident.
The search for this particular airplane started over a weekend. That Monday I went out with our patrol division that was working the case with the RCMP that weekend, and Sergeant Walters showed me some articles that they found in a campfire that were burned allegedly by the pilot of this particular airplane.
The only way to solve the mystery was to find the plane, so authorities brought in an underwater salvage team from Vancouver, Canada.
After some hours with the submersible down in the murky waters, they did recover the location of the aircraft. They filmed it on the bottom of the lake, and they located the body of Diane Babcock in the passenger seat of the aircraft, still strapped in her seat.
As the plane came out of the water, I think there was a real tense quiet fell over the crowd. I would say there may be 75 or 100 people in various locations where they could see this. It was a dramatic moment in a very hushed atmosphere, very quiet, very respectful, I might add. Particularly, I think, as the fuselage came out and we saw the hair along the side of the fuselage, realizing that in fact this was true, that there was a person in that aircraft.
Searching for that plane, finding it, hoping against hope that she wasn't going to be in it dead, and yet hoping that she was, for the Babcock's sake, so we'd know what happened. And being there that day and seeing her was it was a very, very emotional experience for me.
The discovery of Diane's body did reveal many things about the mystery of what happened that night. Based on evidence found at the lake and on what Ambrozuk said in his calls to his friend, authorities charged him with negligent homicide.
He stated on the telephone that he could not undo her seatbelt, and eventually the plane sank and he had to head for shore at that point and let the plane go down with her. When we checked the door, her door was free and working fine. We had no difficulty whatsoever removing her from the seat.
Why am I still interested in this case, and why have I kept it alive? I think Jerry had a plan, and I think Jerry had a purpose. I don't know why Diane was there, and I want to know. I want Jerry to come in and settle this for us. I want him to tell us what happened that day, what the plan was, what really happened to Diane. If it was an accident, fine, let's get it over with. If it was something other than an accident, let's settle that too. I think the Babcocks deserve better than this.
Kalispell is like any other small town. We have values, and we have a very important thing called responsibility. And we want justice to prevail within this case.
This 1980 photo is one of the only ones we have of Ambrozuk. We had it enhanced by computer to show him with a variety of looks. He speaks fluent Polish, and both of his ears are pierced. Ambrozuk has olive skin that tans easily. He's been mistaken for a Mexican national. He's used the alias Luis Gomez, who might be living his life south of the border, but he holds a Canadian pilot's license. Police believe he may be living in Western Canada. If you recognize Jerry Ambrozuk, you know what to do. Call us at 1-800-CRIME-TV. Diane Babcock's family has waited more than a decade for some closure. Your call could make the difference. When we come back, we'll tell you about a courageous little boy home alone who snagged a burglar in the act.
Came back right here.
Occasionally, as host of Final Justice, I come across a hero who steps up and really makes a difference. 10-year-old Anthony Smith of Tucson, Arizona did just that when he came across a burglar when he was home alone. On September 13th, 1995, Anthony was home from school with a cold when an intruder broke into the house.
And I grabbed my blanket, and I ran back over here, and I covered myself down here. And then when he came in halfway, I went boom, and he said uh-oh, and I ran over here, and I slammed the window on him, and I came back right here, and I said, yeah, I'm home, and I punched him in the nose.
It was a heck of a punch, giving the intruder a bloody nose and scaring him off. But police tracked him down, and Anthony identified him. Alejandro Peralta Garcia, a known thief, was charged with the break-in. After an anxious phone call from her son, Anthony's mother rushed home.
I told him when he told me that he had hit him, and I thought, why didn't you get a lamp or something? And he says, well, but I thought you'd get mad if I broke any of your things.
Anthony has taken a few boxing lessons, but he says he thinks violence should always be the last resort.
All I gotta say is, it's not real fun, but if it comes to a time which you have to defend yourself, if there's another way you can, just walk away from this, I would have done that, except for I knew I couldn't.
Anthony's a smart kid. Violence should always be a last resort. And Anthony's quick thinking made him a hero. Just 1 week after the attempted burglary, Tucson's chief of police gave Anthony a commendation in front of his entire school. Way to go, Anthony. Now let's take one last look at Jerry Ambrozuk. Ambrozuk speaks fluent Polish, and both of his ears are pierced. He holds a Canadian pilot's license, and police believe he may be living in Western Canada. If you recognize...